Hello and welcome back to ApocaPodcast. This is our lore drop series where we talk about the world lore before the campaign starts. We also talk a little bit about the rules. I have to apologize. I am on travel right now, and so I'm recording myself with a $3 headset that I got from Five Below, so it might sound a little bit different. But I'm going to continue talking with Jeremy again. Last time we met, we spoke a little bit about Relic, and we worked out his character sheet. And we have already discussed changes to that character sheet, but that's fine. That is the whole reason behind the ABC system, is it's supposed to be easy to change around. But today, we're going to work on a little bit of the world lore. As I've mentioned in previous podcasts, Jeremy has been super helpful with fleshing out what the pre-collapse world has looked like. And so we just threw together a couple of questions about what was Kita like before the collapse happened. And so we just kind of have some questions we were going to go through. And so because this has more or less been inspired by your understanding, I'm going to kind of kick it over to you with just a very simple, broad question. And so if you don't have an answer for this, Jeremy, that's okay. We can figure it out by the end. But the big question in my mind is, what is the feeling of the past? Because we've talked about it being futuristic. I've thrown around words like cyberpunk, sci-fi, whatever. And I think those are going to elicit different feelings based on how people understand those words. And so what does the future feel like for the average everyday person in your mind?
Yeah, so as much as I like, futurism and all that kind of stuff, I'm not the biggest fan of like the stereotypical cyberpunk. I guess there's nothing wrong with it. It's just kind of overdone. Everything's always neon. Everything. There's always like the plastic clothes. It's like it's just a little overdone. In my mind, I really like the aesthetic of just large monolithic metal everything structures, like gigantic factories, gigantic highways, just everything totally overdone. Kind of thinking like I never got that into Destiny, but I know it's pretty popular, and I think like the very first level, it's like this giant metal wall you have to work your way through, just stuff like that. But specifically, so just a real quick, so it's the future. And so basically over time, people just moved more and more into cities, and the cities slowly just became these giant monolithic enclosed cities. And we'll get more into that as to like why they're enclosed and stuff like that. But in my mind anyways, it's these giant mega corporation cities that everyone lives in, don't really go outside that much, don't have to. I mean, they have like artificial sunlight inside, there's everything you need inside.
Okay.
And like you can go outside, they're not trapping you in there, but I mean, I think about society nowadays, like that's already kind of happening, like remote work, and it's like now we just get food delivered straight to our house, like we don't ever have to leave, and that's enticing because we're lazy. And so I think it's just taking that to the extreme. Almost like a meme in a way, and also kind of cool looking with these gigantic, state-sized cities.
I love it.
Yeah, and I think in my mind anyways, every city corporation is going to have a different feel. I kind of focus just on Relic's city and city corp, and but I imagine kind of like you think about Apple, right? They have a huge focus on aesthetics, and so one city corporation might be all beautiful and pristine and shiny and everything straight and clean. But that's not so much what I'm picturing for MacroCore, as is the city corp that Relic comes from. It's more heavy industry. Everything has a purpose first. Not that they don't completely discount aesthetics, but it's like, look, we have a purpose. We're going to move forward in that purpose. Everything should have, a reason for it. And, aesthetics come second, and self-indulgence and stuff like that comes second. So that's the quicker answer.
I like it. And you've more or less, I was listening to you talk about it, and I absolutely loved it. And I feel like this is a whole new thing for me. Like I feel like I had no understanding of your vision as you were talking, and it's super helpful to me because I think it works with my understanding of the world. Which
Okay.
when I started, I very much went biome first, desert, forest, whatever, and then I had to catch myself and be like, oh wait. This is a post-apocalyptic world. There should be ruins of existing buildings, and so this idea of monolithic cities. I think that really kind of helps me bridge the gap because I can be like, okay, I'm going to put this giant thing in the middle of my desert that I've already established, and I don't have to rearrange how my head thinks about the world.
Gotcha.
Um,
Yeah, sorry if that wasn't clear. Yeah, I just really like the idea. I'm trying to remember where even. What the heck's it? There's a manga and a anime called Blame. I
mhm.
think it's supposed to be pronounced Blam, but it's Blame with an exclamation. Anyways, if you haven't seen it, it's even more over the top. Like it's way in the future. This automated building robots. Well, first of all, humanity is basically almost extinct from they lose control of their AI. Go figure. The robots kill them. But then there's these builder robots that are also out of control, and they just keep building. And it seems like almost pointless, but they're slowly making spheres outward, and they never tell you exactly how big it is. But apparently, somewhere, I think in the mangas or something, there's a single room that's about the size of Jupiter, and
Oh my gosh.
so it's ridiculous. And so they just assume that they completely harvested Jupiter and just used it as building material. And so it's insane. But I just like the idea of these like over the top huge factory cities.
I love it. Okay, so to boil this down a little bit, in terms of the feeling,
Hmm.
industrial. Um, you said it was like a utilitarian maybe.
Yeah, at least for like I said, at least for MacroCore, like that's their kind of. I'd almost say like the New England mindset, right? Like let's get things done. Like let's work. It's not the South where we're gonna take our time and have fun along the way. It's like no, all that stuff's secondary. Like we have a job to do.
Gotcha. Okay, so you mentioned MacroCorp.
Hmm.
Uh, who or what is that, and do you have anything else related to that you can share with us?
Yeah, so it's macro. I had macro corp at first, and then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go with macro core because one of their main things is they have a proprietary uh, power source, and nobody really
Mm,
knows except for maybe some of the uppers. It's actually pretty old, but it's self-sustaining, um, and it's some kind of gigantic fusion, like way deep down inside that pretty much everything draws power from. It's not unlimited power, but it's near unlimited power. So it's at least in macro core, it's post. What is it? Not post consumerism, but yeah, it's post consumerism where it's just like there's so much energy and resources, everything's pretty much free. Uh, so everyone's basic needs are met, and we can talk more about that later. But that's where I got the name from, macro core, or I guess it kind of evolved into that. But yeah, so that's kind of the the core of it. And then, like I said, there's just powers everything, but especially their everything's macro. So they got macro factories. They got uh, and it's pretty much all automated. The other thing I should mention is, in my mind, anyways, population isn't super high. So like the cities have a pretty high population, but um, people kind of just stop having kids, and they don't need a population anymore to run things. Everything's automated. So um, and because everyone's in the cities, there are people outside, but they're kind of nomadic village people, and they're not really connected to or a threat to the corporation, so they just leave them alone. But it's in my mind again, it's just kind of everything outside the city is pretty wild now. It's like nature is just taking over everything
mm,
because it's not managed anymore. So,
hmm.
uh, but yeah. And then sorry, what was the question again?
So I was just touching on the fact that you had mentioned macro core, and
Oh yeah.
I don't think the listeners had heard anything about that, and so I just wanted to dig into it a little bit. Um, and so, based on our previous discussions, we've we were kind of leaning into the idea that corporations had become equally, if not more powerful than the government. And so the government might be omnipresent across the continent of Kita, but within the sphere of influence of a corporation, they might be more powerful in regard to certain aspects. Is that still tracking with what you were
Yeah.
thinking?
Yeah, I was kind of thinking like you could say there's a government still, but it's kind of a joke. It's almost like a royalty at this point. Like they exist, and people kind of like them, I guess, but they really have no power, and I think everyone knows it. They kind of exist, so the lower populace can go and make their complaints, and they can kind of laugh as they walk away, because knowing that nothing is going to change because they have no real power.
Right.
But it's there, I guess. Just maybe it's just left over. Maybe it's an illusion for people to cling to. But yeah, functionally, doesn't really do much.
Awesome. Okay, I will want to touch on that again, but I'm gonna pause and save that discussion for later. Okay, so I think we have a pretty nice vision of what the world looks like. Let's move on to our next bullet point. Let's talk about the state of technology and limitations. Okay, so the way that I kind of broke up technology in my head was going in, I thought this is going to be super futuristic. And then the more and more I tried to think about the technology, I had this kind of split where if the technology was too far in the future, it felt like I had just reskinned magic in a sense.
Yeah,
and I didn't really want that. I didn't want it to be, oh, we're doing magic, but we call it science. And so as I started to water things down, I realized I think how I see the future is not necessarily far futurism, but like near futurism.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started breaking down technology, and I was like, okay, well, if we take all of the technology that we have right now, like cell phones and laptops and cloud computing, and then just crank that up to 11, I feel like that explains how I think of the technology level of Kita as like the everyday. Like they have all of our stuff cranked up to 11, and that's just like you can reach into your pocket, and they will have cell phone or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I went online, I started looking up the history of supercomputers, and I was thinking about
the notes.
Yeah, I took a lot of notes. But I started looking up, and I started thinking about how we used to have entire rooms filled with cabinets upon cabinets of computers that are less powerful than the cell phone in our pocket right now.
Yeah, I just real quick, so I did a I would say a small dive into specifically CPUs a few years ago now, I guess, because I remember I was listening to something with some geeky podcast. And they're like, oh yeah, the billions of transistors. I went, whoa. I was like, hold on. I was like, billions? I'm like, I knew there's a lot, but billions? Come on. These things are like 2 square inches across. That doesn't even make sense. And I looked into it, and just for the listeners, go look into it. Look in the process of how we make CPUs. It is mind-blowing. It is like one step away from magic. I'm not even sure it's real. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I'm like, I don't know if this is real. Cell phones and computers might just be magic. I'm not sure. It's insane. Sorry, I didn't mean to get us off topic. I just thought it was just crazy and amazing at the same time. But yeah, I was kind of thinking the same thing. I don't like... I definitely prefer sci-fi over fantasy, and I kind of agree. Like, you go too far and hand-wavy, it just feels like shinier fantasy. And so, yeah, I kind of like the, more hard science. I guess nothing in the future is really hard science, but another good example is, have you ever seen Elysium, the movie?
Yes.
I feel like that's a pretty good example of taking nothing in it. I feel like was way out of the, realm of possible in that. But I think that was a good example of kind of like the dirty industrial, but they got machines that make you live forever, and shuttles that can just fly up into space like no big deal, and giant gigantic space station that people live on endlessly. And so it's like nothing, yeah, like you said, nothing out of the realm of possible, but that's kind of what I had imagined as well.
Okay, so some of the things that I just started listing here, because obviously the listeners can't read my notes.
That's
But
true.
basically, what I thought of, I labeled this as old hat, as in technology that is so well understood that it's for the people of Toprak, they would consider this kind of like your cassette player or your CD player. It's almost to the point of obsolete. And so I was thinking about battery technology. I feel like that's the kind of thing that I remember when getting a cell phone that had a battery that could last all day was like, whoa, this is great. And so I feel like battery technology is one of those things that in the future, you won't have to worry about it. You can get hours or days in tiny little packages. I threw artificial intelligence and virtual intelligence in that same bucket because we're kind of at that edge of we can get it to do things, and you give us a couple 100 years to work out the kinks, it'll be really amazing. Where I was going with the supercomputers, I was thinking about like the equivalent of a cell phone in Toprak. Would that be a portable supercomputer? And the analogy I was trying to work with is we used to have cabinets of supercomputers in the past that are less powerful than our cell phones, and now we have supercomputers like Frontier at Oak Ridge National Lab, fastest in the world. So if you had like a room full of all of the cabinets in Frontier in the size of your cell phone, like, is that kind of where we're at? And that's why I did such a deep dive, because I'm like, I feel like that might be pushing it a little too much.
Yeah, I don't know. I think one thing I had imagined is the way people accept technology, even though it's everywhere and you can't escape it. It's not people don't accept technology across the board the same way. So like I imagine some people really want to have a physical disconnect from everything still. So like you said, like a cell phone or something that they can pick up and use. But then there's a lot of people that have just a lot of stuff integrated, that's also, Musk has his Neuralink, it's like we're not necessarily that far away from some of this stuff. But I think people are always going to have that hesitancy to fully accept things or like augment themselves, right? I think we'll probably talk about that too, augmentations and stuff. But yeah, I kind of figured some people, it's like, they might have some kind of augmentation in their head, but something they can physically disconnect so you can't hack people and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know. I didn't think too much about like processing power, just how much power you have, because I guess it depends on like what do you really need, I guess, the average person's, are they still watching cat videos? So do you need that kind of power? So maybe the R&D, maybe those guys need it. And then at that point, who knows, AI maybe just figuring it all out for us. Like, hey, I invented this today. Oh, cool. Thanks.
I love it. Yeah, so let's move into, unless you have any other old hat technology you want to throw into our list.
I don't think so. Nothing off the top of my head anyways.
I saw, this will be my last statement. I saw on Twitter, and I think I retweeted it. It was a coffee maker, but it was a robot coffee maker that was a frog. And so it made your coffee, and then it hopped to you.
That seems like a disaster.
We need in the future.
Oh gosh, I hope it's sealed well. Just leaving a trail of sloshed coffee everywhere.
Oh gosh. Okay. So let's move into like current technology in Kita Kita before the collapse. We touched on a little bit augmentation, cybernetics. I think those would be kind of the things that were between standard and cutting edge. They're not they might not be universal, but everybody's heard of them, everybody knows about them. You can correct me on this, or we can find a middle ground, but one of the thoughts that I had about the theme, because in the cyberpunk genre, one of the common reoccurring themes is I think it's called cyber psychosis, where as someone starts to replace their biological body parts with cybernetics, they start to lose their sense of humanity. And so this was one of those older themes back when technology was kind of more up and coming, where, we were losing our humanity to our technology.
Mm.
And I didn't necessarily want to go that route, but one of the things I was thinking about with the whole corporation consumerism is that I was thinking about corporations capitalizing on like body dysmorphia and things like that. So
Mm.
no matter what your body actually looks like, the corporate system is always telling you it's wrong.
Mm.
You are too fat, you are too thin, you are too weak, you are too human, you're not human enough, and we can fix that for you for a price. And kind of pushing, these augmentations or cybernetic enhancements in that sense. But I don't know if that fits with your post-consumerism idea, or because we had talked a little bit about currency, so we're touching on a lot of different things here.
Yeah, I didn't go too deep into like the specific economy. I know with MacroCore, like I said, post consumerism, kind of like your basic needs are met. I think maybe we're hopping ahead, but basically my idea was, so everything's the currency is basically energy, right? I don't know, joules or whatever, and you're just given a very basic amount, whatever. It doesn't matter what the amount is. It's enough to meet all your needs, right? And then everything costs energy. So, my food today costs, I don't know, 10,000 joules, whatever. I have no idea what joules are. But so you can use that for whatever you want, as long as you don't run out of joules or energy. And the way you earn more energy is the more you could contribute to the corporation, right? So if you're an engineer or scientist, and you're really helping develop things, then you're gonna earn a good amount. But nobody's really forced to work, again, because you don't have to, but they want to encourage people to contribute, because again, it's like, what are you doing? Just they don't force people to work, but I guess kind of look down upon if you're not contributing in some way, even if it's like artistic or something. But yeah, I don't know, because it's like, or if that's the case, then what's driving the company to do anything other than, I guess, just human nature, just wanting to explore and develop new things. But yeah, I don't know how that would work with other corporations and trading and stuff. I did think a little bit about some of that, as far as like, all right, how do these some of the big conflict between the companies is resources, right? Like trying to get a hold of resources that they can have because they're going to be dependent on that, and they're all limited. So how does that look? But I think we'll talk a little bit more about that as to what competition and stuff looks like between companies. But yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting conversation too, because you think about, even right now, these conversations are already being had with how much automation we have and how many jobs it's going to be killing. Because people are like, oh, you know what? Technology has always disrupted jobs. It's just, another bump in the road. But they're already showing that this kind of automation is not building as many jobs as it's replacing. And I don't have numbers on that, but I've seen a few things where it's showing that it's just not the same. And so there's already talk about basic universal income and, how's that going to work? The more I learn about the economy, the more I have respect for economists, and the more I realize I know nothing about the economy, because it's super complicated.
Yeah. So in terms of motivation for the corporations, I have an idea, but it really depends on, again, it goes back to that feeling of the pre-collapse society. Is it a utopian society, or is it a dystopian society? Because if we want to lean into the dystopia, that's, I think, fairly simple. You can always just blame people being power hungry. Someone always, even if money is not a thing, power is always going to be, a driving factor for certain people. Power and influence.
Yeah, I think I could. Yeah, it's definitely leaning more towards a dystopian. It's not like everything's horrible, because in a lot of ways things are great. But yeah, definitely corruption, power. I was thinking the companies could almost even be like feudalistic in a way, like their own little kingdom, and the people at the top are the ones making decisions. Maybe it's not one person, but maybe a board or boards, making decisions, and kind of a tribalistic mindset between the companies, where people want to fight in a way because it's like they're so prideful of their own little world. And again, you can even see that today. Like you think about, like I just saw something the other day. It's like, oh, so and so moved from Massachusetts to Florida, and now things are so much better because I'm not forced to do X, Y, or Z. And it's like policy and government is already forcing people to move from where they are to where what suits more their lifestyle and their beliefs. And it's like, I guess you could kind of, again, take that to the logical extreme. And it's like, okay, it's easy to move across the world now, right? Compared to, the Oregon Trail where you had a good chance of just dying from diarrhea. So now you can pick up your whole family and move across the world. No big deal. And so it's like they might move across the whole world or, across the country to the corporation that suits their mindset and their belief system the most. And so I feel like it's not even that big of a stretch, honestly. And that could even be part of the draw for the companies and their advertising is like, hey, we're X, Y, or Z. Come join us. It's like almost cultish kingdom corporations. I like that, cultish kingdom corporations.
We can make that one of the corps. No, man.
Yeah, they're just blatant about it. Hey, join us. That's funny.
Okay. Okay. Man, I really want to talk about corpse, but we'll push that later. There's so much to talk about. Let's keep going with technology, right? Augmentation, cybernetics.
Yes.
I put in a question mark here. Fusion and fission. You were talking about how MacroCore had like a very large ancient fusion reactor or something.
Mm-hmm.
My question mark was along the idea of microfusion, the idea of portable fusion generators. Because one of the things that I saw with a possible source of conflict for these corporations was I considered biological enhancements as like cutting edge. And so maybe cybernetics was well thought out, and you could replace your arm with a robot arm, and it's a relatively safe process because we've kind of mastered it. But the idea of rebuilding your own body or replacing your body with genetic engineering, if you want tiger arms or tiger eyes or something like that, that would be like the cutting edge technology. And one of the points of contention I saw between these corporations was things like, we no one ever talks about it, but things like cybernetics, that's going to require a power source. Like if you have a robot arm, you got to power it somehow. And so one of my thoughts was that these cybernetic and augmentations would cause people to rely more heavily on corporations, assuming that energy was the monetary unit. And things like biological enhancements was basically freedom, because you might be able to augment your strength through a cybernetic enhancement, but now you have to pay energy. Or you could augment your strength through genetic enhancement, and now you don't have to rely on these energy corporations to power your arms.
That's an interesting idea. I didn't think too much about the genetic stuff other than like life extension. Just thought it'd be cool if people could live longer in the future. But yeah, I mean that is interesting. Kind of a good way to put some conflict between some of the corps and people, and yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. So one of the thoughts that I was thinking about was these kind of portable fusion generators as just like a replacement for batteries or something like that. You have your own little tiny miniature reactor or something. I wasn't certain if that was going to fit in there or not, but
yeah, I don't see why not. It's the future. Just hand wave. Woo! It's possible.
And it works.
I mean, I learned not too long ago about these radioactive decay batteries. That it's like they put a whole lot of energy out, but it's like it'll power a watch for like 6 billion years or whatever. Like just ridiculous thing. So it's like again, take that to a logical extreme. Just be like just amp it up so it can power some augmentations and last a long
like
time.
That.
I don't know. Yeah,
that's pretty nifty. Okay. And we touched on economy, right? We said energy economy, kind of like a basic universal income of energy. And so there's my note: rise of bioenhancements threatening cybernetic energy market. Just as a possible point of contention. And actually, part of me thought that relic might be a proponent of biologic enhancements. Because I think I don't remember if it was during our session or outside of our session, but I think we had talked about Relic having some conflict with his own corporation and their
Yes.
practices.
Yep. Yeah, I didn't get into the reasons. It was mostly just the more he learned, the more he disliked how corrupt and disgusting things were at the top, and so wanted nothing to do with it. It wasn't so much the biological thing. I think I was saying he kind of leans towards the not integrated technology. So he loves technology, but not in him, I guess you could say. So non-integrated and prefers not to. But I think, if somebody has lost their arm, he's not going to be like, oh, you're gross, get away from me, you have a robot arm. So not like that, but I think just avoiding the use of it for no reason.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, something to think about. I just thought it might. This was again tying into my idea of basically corporations enslaving people through cybernetic enhancements. Is you enhance yourself, which makes you need more power, and now you're working for the company store, and you can't get out from under it. And I thought that would play into one of the reasons why Relic was like, "Oh, I don't really like this," and and maybe he would like the idea of the freedom provided through the genetic enhancements. But I mean, that's obviously totally up to you. It's just a thought I had.
It's funny though, because that whole being contractually enslaved to the corporation, that's also in that game Shipbreakers. Basically, I forget what the deal is. I don't know if they clone you or something, but basically getting you up into space, training you, all your gear. It's like bajillions of dollars, and then as you start earning money, you're like, whoa, wait a second. You're like, I'm going to be working for 100 years to pay this off. So sounds pretty similar.
Okay, so let's get into competition between the corporations and the relationship between corporations and state, which we touched on a little bit.
So the competition between corporations, I actually thought about this quite a bit, and I don't know where it came from, probably just inspiration from a bunch of other things, but I had this idea of the corporations have, it's kind of a mix of things. It's almost like Extreme Olympics, where it's open season on each other. So for, say, I don't know, six months out of the year or whatever, all sorts of shenanigans are allowed. I mean, infiltration, theft, right, they're trying to steal all each other's proprietary information. They're trying to find weak points in the structure, like how to get in and out easily, how to tap into their mainframes, all of this stuff. And the main reason they allow it is, well, I guess you could say partially people always like entertainment, and I guess they could make a big to-do show out of it or whatever. But also the companies themselves actually like it because it forces them to find weak points and how to improve. And these corporations are hyper focused and obsessed with just trying to scratch every little bit of advancement they can. And so just straight up special ops teams going into these places, and there's kind of there's not straight up murder allowed and stuff like that, but it can get pretty violent. I don't know how many people are Warhammer 40K fans, but in that they have the blood games where basically they're trying to infiltrate the throne room, they're trying to attack the pinnacle of mankind. And again, it's just it's to make sure everyone's on their best game is the whole point of it.
Nice.
But yeah, I was kind of thinking there's this etiquette, they have some written rules and maybe some unwritten rules of things you can and can't do. It's not just open warfare, right? But like I said, it's almost like an Extreme Olympics or a voluntary Hunger Games where maybe not straight up murder, but they're gonna go in and cut their way through doors, tase people, steal information, stuff like that. And I just thought because it would be super fun, and it kind of makes sense.
So as you were talking, it made me think of the Roman Colosseum in a sense. And I was like, it's almost like entertainment for the upper echelon. They get to watch the peons fight amongst themselves while they sip wine.
Well, who knows? Maybe they even televise it for everyone's entertainment.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like the first point A, I guess you could say, of the competition. Oh, excuse me. The second point was, so okay, there's this known system of competition, and there's the time period, but then there is the unspoken about competition where the gloves come off and there are no more rules. But if you get caught, it's no bueno. They're going to take some pretty heavy retaliatory action. And that's where major points of conflict and even war could happen, I guess you could say. But those are going to be like super, super elite teams that are not going to get caught. They're going to do everything they can not to get caught and not leave a trace. And, you know, that may come into play. But there's not a ton of information. Really, only the very tippity top people even know that this stuff is going on, other than the news reports of maybe somebody going missing and nothing ever comes of it. But it's just, it gets swept under the carpet, kind of like today's society stuff. Some funky stuff happens and never get answers, and you just kind of forget about it. But yeah, that's kind of cool too. I like that.
Okay. Yeah, I like that too. I wish I had my notes with me, but because I'm on travel, I had sketched out some ideas about this. I'll send it to you later. But basically, I was thinking about this idea of competition and hierarchy. I think that's really kind of where it came from. Is in my head, and feel free to add, subtract, change what I'm going to say. But in my head, there were 4 mega corporations, like massive things that. And again, because I'm a simple man, they were all associated with the compass directions, north, south, east, west. And so these mega umbrella corporations had many subsidiaries under them. And so the people at the top, this was like your old money, your nepotism, these people that they've been in the corporation forever. And then underneath them were subsidiaries that, again, kind of through nepotism, they could like hand off entire mini corporations to people they approved of. And then as you went down, you had smaller and smaller subsidiaries, and then probably a couple of freelance, people that just kind of start up.
Yeah, again, I didn't put a ton of thought into it, but I did kind of was thinking like, yeah, so the upper, the very tippity top is going to be almost, like I said, feudalistic family. There is nepotism, but also you have to perform. Like if you you're going to get every advantage, but if you don't cut it, sorry, go find something else to do. Because again, it's just super competitive. And that's part of what Relic's deal was. Like part of it, he was just kind of disgusted by things. Part of it was like, okay, if you're not on board, get out of here. So, so yeah, it's part of his deal. But yeah, I mean, other than that, kind of like the feudalistic family / you can earn your way to the top, but it's going to be harder for the average person. And again, because corporate espionage and stuff is so prevalent, they're going to really run you through everything to make sure that you're legit and not. So it's harder if you're not family, but it's not pure family. And again, that could vary from company to company. They're going to run their companies differently, but that's kind of what I had in mind for MacroCore.
Okay, I think that's all the planned questions I had. Is there anything else you want to expand on, or new topics you want to touch on?
Off the top of my head, I don't know how you feel about like space stuff, but I was like, we could, if you want to just forego all, because another good point of conflict could be resources. It's like, all right, so we have all the energy we need, but okay, we're running out of resources. And just to simplify the universe, if you don't want space travel and stuff, we could just say I forget what it's called, but when there's too much space junk, you can't even get out of the planet anymore. So we're just kind of stuck here and hoping asteroids come to us. just catch them. Just catch it.
Catch it. I like it.
Can't be that hard.
Yeah, I think just in a general statement, I thought of kind of basically space litter, satellites everywhere.
Yeah.
All full up. I've specifically left space ambiguous. I think in part because I don't want to think about it. And I think in part
it's understandable
because I want it to be kind of like open future definition. We're going to have this adventure on Kita Kita, and if we get through that, we can have an adventure on some other continent and Toprak, and if we get through that, maybe Toprak has space travel technology, and this adventure moves up into space. But I don't want to commit to that just yet.
Yeah. That's understandable.
So as far as
I think everything else I had. Oh no, just I think everything else I had in mind was mostly just aesthetics, just kind of thinking what things looked like and whatnot. Because we talked about some of the technology that might be found around the continent, like crazy water catchment systems and self-automated factories and stuff. But I don't think so. I think we covered it pretty well.
Okay. So I'll throw. I don't know how much time we have left, but I'll throw one more spoiler out there, just because you touched on the resources. I think one of the kind of cutting edge technologies would be fabrication, or basically a conversion from energy to matter.
Okay.
Kind of like a reverse fusion or reverse nuclear reactor, right? Where we take material and we convert it into energy, right? This would be the opposite. If you take energy and you convert it into material, and you could use that to fabricate rare elements. And so that's one of the limiting factors in a lot of technology is there's only so much, neodymium in the world, and you got to mine it from specific places on the planet. And how does the world change if you can just say, okay, 3D printer, print neodymium and pour in massive amounts of energy, right? It's not cheap to do this, but with enough resources, you can convert one resource to another kind of resource. And so that was one of the things that I had been playing around with.
That's a cool idea. And totally, again, within the realm of possible.
Yeah. Wild. Okay. Well, thank you very much for being with me, Jeremy. That was very enlightening, even for me. So I really hope our listeners have enjoyed that. I've got some thinking to do. So until next time, I'll talk to you later, Jeremy. And this is the ABC Jam signing off. I'll see you next time.